Hi everyone, Al the Psych here. I have a video today on brainwashing. A lot of information here. I'll try and get through it quickly. This is for informational purposes only. I've taken information from the work of Martin Pike, Burks, and Martin from 1998, combating cult mind control from Stephen Hassan, um, borrowed from Cialdini, persuasion 2016, and influence 2001. And then Brainwashing, the Science of Thought Control. This is by Kathleen Taylor from 2004. So a lot of sources here. Now, Martin, Pyle, Burks, and Martin uh, stated most people who join cults think that they are joining a good group, a moral group, a healthy group. Okay. Um, and then Hassan speaks mainly of cults in his book. And he mentions that cults don't have to be religious. They can be, completely secular. All right. Now, he differentiates mind control from brainwashing. He says mind control is more subtle, while brainwashing can be much more coercive and abusive, like was done with POWs. And I think Taylor kind of speaks the same way as well. Now, in my video, I'm just using the terms interchangeably. Okay, in terms of mind control and brainwashing. And I put down just some points that I think are important. I mean, obviously, if you want to get more detail, you're going to have to read some of these books. I really like Kathleen Taylor's book. All of them are excellent. Okay, first point though, individuals that tend to be susceptible to being recruited are often going through some sort of stressor in their life. So maybe they're going through, a divorce, or maybe they've just moved, to a new city and they're, by themselves, no friends, and something like that. Maybe there's some financial stressors going on. Um, and then Hassan also makes the point that typically people don't just go and join cults, but that instead they are recruited. Okay. Now, Cialdini in his book Persuasion says the best persuaders become the best through persuasion, the process of arranging for recipients to be receptive to a message before they encounter it. Okay, so in the case of the stressors, if you're dealing with stressors, the work's already been done. So if there's a big stressor going on in the life of a recruit, they're already in persuasion mode. Okay. Now, reciprocation. Those who have given us benefits are entitled to benefits from us in return. So sometimes recruits will be love bombed. Okay, if you've heard that term before, they're showering you with, praise and whatever. They're just making you sound like you're the best thing that's ever happened. And if you're in a vulnerable state, I mean, this might feel pretty good, even if you're not in a vulnerable state. I mean, come on, and I'm sure it feels uh, pretty well. And then you might have the need to reciprocate. And Cialdini talks about reciprocating self-disclosure tends to unify people and generate feelings of closeness. So you can see how reciprocity might work in terms of establishing connections. Number two, recruiting doesn't happen at one time. So it's a process, one step at a time. Now, if you're an outsider, looking in at what might be going on in a cult, and what they're doing, you might think, wow, how does somebody get to that point? Well, it doesn't happen all at one time. It happens in one little mini step, at a time. It's kind of like, if you start cheating on your income taxes, it's like, okay, $5 here is not going to matter. And then next year it's like, oh, $500, and then 5 years down the road, it's like maybe you're cheating on, you're not reporting $10,000 that you should have been reporting or something like that. It happens sequentially, gradually. Okay. Number 3, being recruited by many people can also be a little bit more enticing. So if you go to a retreat and many people are espousing the tenets of what has been presented by the speaker, it might make more of an impact on you, as opposed to just one person espousing the tenets of what the speaker said. So something about a lot of people all saying the same thing. It's easy to fall into, into this group think, and this desire to conform and to fit in and have harmony. And if you've got 10 people saying the same thing, it's easy to kind of fall into what they're saying. Maybe it's a little bit more difficult to challenge what they've said because there's so many of them, as opposed to if it's just one person. Okay. Number 4, the recruiter tries to find out about the recruit. So he's trying to find like soft, vulnerable areas in the person's life and personality that can be manipulated, right? So maybe the recruiter will introduce the recruit to a member that has a similar background, so a sense of familiarity is there, and then it's easier to develop a sense of trust. Okay. 5, a strict differentiation of leader and followers. So there's going to be, one head who's basically kind of calling the shots, and you're going to have the group that's listening. Okay. And 6, it's often it's an us versus them mentality foundation that is laid. Okay. There's like no gray area. This is like a binary, all good, all bad, black, white mentality with no room for wiggle room. That's really a red flag for me. I don't like to see things in all good, all bad scenarios. And when I hear, like this is all good and this is all bad right away, that's, my antenna goes up when I hear that. Number 7, the recruit is kept very busy in a very rigid routine. Something about that, they don't even have time to think. If they've gotten to that point in a cult where, now it's like, okay, you have to do this, 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 this. And then 8, the recruit is strongly encouraged to avoid, their family, their previous friends, things like that. So there's a sense of isolation that goes on. Okay. Remember, it's that us or them. Well, now they're them. Okay, they're not part of us. They're them. There's that Venn diagram is not meshing. It's like separate. Okay, and some of the cults might be what you could call like future thinking cults. They send out a promise of like this utopian quest. How it's going to be perfect. We're working for that perfection. Okay, I'm going to end this with some information from Kathleen Taylor. So I'm going to quote this part. So many of the ways we resist influence attempts, she mentions it as influence attempts, involve the triggering of stop and think. Okay, so critical thinking, skepticism, and humor are all examples of stop and think reactions. Okay, so critical thinking and skepticism analyze the message, checking the logic of its arguments, the use of emotive language. Okay, I think that's important. What kind of emotion is coming out of them. And the accuracy of factual statements. Okay. They also query the authority and motive of the message's source. Okay. Humor also challenges authority, albeit by emphasizing emotion rather than argument. Okay, so basically she's telling you to kind of take a step back. Take a step back. There's no need to rush. Don't get all caught up in this, and go ahead and analyze. From my own take, I think it's also important to, to kind of live with shades of gray and avoid this all bad, all good, black, white, yes, no type of scenario. And, in this way, I think I'm in this mindset then of questioning. And even if I'm internally questioning what somebody is saying to me, I don't have to challenge them, you know, um, verbally. But if somebody presents to me this picture perfect scenario, right away my antenna uh, go up. And this mentality, I think, has tentacles just throughout life in general. It doesn't have to be about just being, you know, recruited for a cult, but it could be, being taken for a sucker or something like that. So, it's the old, what is the old saying? It's, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. So, if somebody approaches you with this great investment, that, you're going to get your return and your money back doubled, in 3 months or something like that. Well, okay, my antenna's going up. I'm not expecting any, quick fixes or quick winnings or anything like that. I'm more like, okay, I'm going to take a more methodical approach to what's going on in my life. So I hope that's interesting. There's a lot more information out there, on mind control and cults and brainwashing, but I think this gives a kind of a little synopsis of things that you should be aware of. Okay, that's it. Remember, this is for informational purposes only. Okay, so long.